Hey everybody, welcome back to the CALLOUS GSC Legends series. I thought I was doing ADV Legends, but you guys probably know this gentleman more for his GSC. But let me tell you, he's been playing ADV for a long time. I'm here with Fear today. Thank you so much for joining me and giving me some of your time. I know you're a busy man.
Hello, CALLOUS. I'm glad that you're having me with you tonight. It's a night for me.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We have a 7-hour gap between us, so I really appreciate you taking the time. I think most people listening to this probably know who you are, have seen you in SPL over the years, but for anyone listening who maybe doesn't know who you are, could you just give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Yes, I'm Fiar. I'm from Cyprus. It's a little island in the Mediterranean. I'm 35 years old, and I've been playing Pokemon for around 20 years.
Jeez,
That goes back from like 2004. That's when I began.
20 years. That that's unbelievable. I mean, I guess take me back to the beginning if you can even remember that far back. What made you get into this in the first place? What is it that made you go, "Hey, I want to start playing Pokemon"?
Well, it was. I always played the cartridges, so I started with yellow, then I bought gold, not with my money, of course. Then I got ruby, and yeah, I eventually started searching online for some movesets. Ismail was good with I don't even remember the moves now with flamethrower. And what do I need to build my things? And I ended up, if I remember correctly, on a few sites like Game FAQs and IGN back then. They had some really long walkthroughs and guides with moves for the best move for this Pokemon, etc. And yeah, that piqued my interest. And eventually, those sites, there were comments and a comment section underneath which people used to mention like, Net Battle we use this and that, and on Net Battle we use this Pokemon is not good with flamethrower or I don't know Surf. You use Hydro Pump, for example, and that piqued my interest. And eventually, I downloaded that Net Battle program, and that's how I got into competitive Pokemon. Net Battle was the simulator we had before we have Pokemon Showdown.
Oh yeah, multiple simulators before. That was before Pokemon Online,
Yes, yes, yes.
Shoddy Battle, Net
Oh, yeah,
Battles way back.
exactly. That's way back. Yeah. I was 15 then.
Time flies.
Yeah.
You must have so many. I mean, you've been playing so long, but what are some of your favorite memories from the early days? Who are some of the first people that you became friends with when you started playing Pokemon?
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you, but I don't know if you're gonna know them.
That's okay. The
Uh,
viewers want to know.
well, you don't become famous or a star overnight. You log in, you play constantly, you log in every day, you like it, you build teams, you fail, you win some, you lose some. And but eventually, when I on the old days, there's a lot of people that I really came close and admired that played with back then. For example, Veteran in Love. I don't know if you know this guy. He was a legend back then.
Everyone knows VIL, man. One of the best of all time.
With Goofball, I played a lot. I also played a lot with Husk. I think Goofball and Husk were Asian.
Yeah, no, I know both guys. I
Um,
mean, you're listing off some of the greatest players
the-
ever of the
the-
old days.
yeah, they were top-notch ADV players because back then Net Battle Simulator mainly supported advanced, so that's what we played. I also met Astamadidos back then. I actually recruited him into my guild. We used to have guilds then.
You and Asta have gone on
Yeah,
to meet each other in real life a couple times, right? You guys have become very close, right?
yeah, we were good friends. I often meet him. I actually saw him like 3 months ago on the airport.
Oh, that's fantastic. I've never met him. I've gotten to talk to him a lot. I really like Asta. I know you do too. Obviously, another one of the all-time great ADV players.
For sure.
So when did this transition for you from just, something I do at night after school, casual hobby, oh, this is fun, to knowing that you want to win, you want to play competitively, you want to get involved in tournament play?
Uh, how did it start?
Right. How did that, what made you decide that you want to play tournaments? You want to play competitively?
Well, it's a long time ago, but we used to have, like I mentioned before, we used to have guilds. So I had one guild of my own, and Smogon wasn't as big as it's now. There used to be many other communities like Smogon. For example, what was its name? I think it was Pogerilm,
Yep.
like for an example. It was as big as Smogon. And Smogon started, with small steps, small tournaments. We didn't have the scale of SPL or World Cup Pokemon back in 2004 or 5 or 6. And so we usually began, they usually hosted like server tournaments. But the servers then were used to have like thousands online that time. So when someone hosted a 56 people tournament, it got filled immediately. So that's how you slowly start to enter slowly enter the scene then. You enter some of those more tournaments, you did well, someone saw you, someone opened a personal message with you and asked you, hey man, I really like your game then, or something like that. And by constantly getting into this scene and these discussions and meeting other good players like you, losing or winning, you got the thing you want to start. So after you transition from those small tournaments that happen online, you go to the forums. You see, Smogon is hosting like Smogon tournaments. It was a big thing back then. When I entered my first Smogon tournament, it was like, if I remember correct, it was Smogon Tour 4.
Jeez.
Now it's like Smogon Tour 45. I don't know the number now.
Correct. It's been a long time since those days.
And yeah, once you enter the forum tournament, you start scheduling with your opponent. We actually used to schedule and play almost immediately. Like, hey, can you play now? Yes, okay, let's go. Because we didn't used to have Discord or something like a platform to talk or schedule a match. We used to enter the main server, see, is my opponent CALLOUS online? Oh, he's there, yeah. Hey man, we are supposed to play for the tournament. Want to go now? Yes, it's done. That's how it's supposed to happen then. So if you actually open one of those old topics and see like Smogon Tour 5 finals, for example, you're gonna notice that quarterfinals, semifinals, finals might have happened in the span of like 5 days.
And this is long before replays as well, right? I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later, but
Yes,
the whole dynamic was different, right? Because you can't just scout them or copy, hey, what beats their team. If you wanted to, you could use the exact same team all tournament long back then, right?
exactly. That's what you did. And maybe you may, let me phrase this correctly. We used to have like one or two teams each of us,
Right.
and we used to build up for those teams. Like, I'm trying this Metagross with these specific EVs now. If I see that my Metagross could use some speed, I will increase it a bit, maybe a few EVs here and there, see how it works, play a few more games. Then I'm bothered by my Salamence. Maybe my Salamence needs to be good here. I'll shift some EVs here, there. We used to work on one team, so we perfectize those teams in the span of time. That's how some legendary teams from back there are still working today. Like, for example, the old Superman team. That's like from 2005.
Yeah, Veteran and Love made that originally.
Exactly.
Now I know, I mean, I'm confident that your proudest accomplishment was probably winning Ruins of Elf Premier League with me back in the day. But other than that one big accomplishment, what are some of the things? I mean, there's so many, but what are the accomplishments in your career that you're most proud of? You've gone on to win so much, but what are some of the ones that stand out for you looking back as your proudest moments?
Well, my the peak, I'd say the peak of my online tournament time is winning SPL 9. That was in 2008,
Wolfpack?
2018, 2018. I'm sorry, SPL 9.
Was that Wolfpack?
Yes, it was Wolfpack.
Yep.
I had Tony as my manager. I was starting in GSC, not ADV. And I did a good record. So that's very memorable for me. Before that, uh, I didn't, as an advanced player, I didn't win many tournaments. So I was like happy with myself that I was like top four in Smoke on Tour 4 or Smoke on Tour 5. I don't remember, but I made playoffs both. Because back then, when you had like four of those, yeah, I reached semifinals in a tournament. It used to be something. Now that it's like Smoke on Tour 45, yeah, being in the semifinalist in one of them, it doesn't even count.
Correct.
But
Nobody
back
nobody even
then, it was,
remembers.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But back then, it used to be RBY, GSC, and ADV, the tiers you played there. So you had to learn the tiers you didn't know in order to even do well. And yeah, obviously win. So I was a newcomer then. So reaching that height back then in 2005, I was very proud of that.
So most of my viewers probably know you more for GSC than ADV, and I guess lately, the past half decade or more, you've been more focused on GSC. So I guess my question would be, how do you compare your level in the two? How would you say when you were at your ADV peak, your best ADV, how does that compare to your level of GSC in your own estimation?
Uh, I don't know, man. I mean, my GC is quite high. It's quite high. It's probably lower, but thing is, I haven't felt lately by the last like 5 years that I peaked in ADV. I know I have probably high ceiling, and I understand that I haven't actually grasped the tier as close as I wanted. Say, for example, played in SPL, because that's where you need a setting that will push you to your best self. So I haven't felt like I reached my peak in ADV, if I'm to be completely honest. But even if I did, I don't think it would be near my GSC level. I
So
think it would be slightly lower.
so even your best ADV, you think ultimately you are a better GSC player.
Yes, exactly.
Something that I know about you, you and I unfortunately never did get to team together in SPL, but in talking about it, I know that you are a ridiculous prepper. You take very detailed notes about your opponents, you study games, you watch a ton of games, you pick up on small things, small preferences that people go towards, and you write it down. It's like you have an encyclopedia of every GSC player. Tell us about your prep. I mean, why are you that level of thorough, and how much of an advantage do you think that it gives you? Do you feel like you know how to beat some of your opponents that other people maybe don't know how to beat because you are so thorough watching these games and writing down all these notes?
Well, first of all, I don't prep like that outside of a spear. Because I'm quite old, obviously, so I focus my attention yearly on that tournament. When I restarted playing, that was a few years ago. That was the main thing to play for. That's to start answering the answer. Uh, now I don't only study the moves or the combos or the teams or watch too many play. I do all this, but I also like to, I don't know, notice small habits. Like this player likes to switch cloister on his Snorlax, and he did that like 7 games in a row. I'll take a mental note of that, and I don't know, I might bring Thunder Snorlax, for example. Now I'm giving a GSE example. Uh, this gives you a much stronger advantage to do rather than, I don't know, this player always brings, for example, Salamis Metagross, and because that game you might play them, they might not. They might switch it up, especially when now we are talking about ADV, especially in ADV, where you have much more Pokemon and much more things to take note of during preparation. It's much harder to prep than in GSC. So while in GSC, I'm able to notice more patterns or see how player plays, not only from replays, but during the game itself. In advance, because you have many other small things, like you have natures, you have more items, you have abilities, you have a lot of things that change from GSC. It's not as easy to do this in ADV, but if someone does it, I guarantee it's a massive advantage.
So you view prep as very important in ADV.
Yes, yes. Obviously, playing is also like, there is a thing we used to say back in the day. You need to have reflexes during a game, and you need to predict. You need to try to understand the position your opponent is in and what he wants to do, so you can guess what he's gonna do and predict his next moves. And if you are able to reach this stage, you're like a king. You won't lose easily.
For yourself, how much?
Obviously, other than playing, prepping, I think it's very important. Very important because it's the advantage you can get in the game before you even enter. So, from recent memory, ABR, for example, someone will probably talk about later, does this, and I admire him for this. He actually beats you in the builder. So you have to understand the power that correct prepping does for you.
For yourself, how much of your own tournament success would you attribute to how thorough of a prepper you are? I mean, I know you obviously have a lot of confidence in your own in-game ability, but how much of the credit do you give to your prep?
Uh, Probably half.
Wow, 50-50, half of it.
Yeah.
And then as far as what to do with that prep, a lot of people, this is such a controversial topic. Some people are heavy counter teamers. They look at the opponent and they go, oh, I know how to beat this guy. I'm going to bring this thing, this thing, this thing. Other people are on the total opposite end of the spectrum. They think you shouldn't do that at all. You should just build a good team, a solid, generalized team. Doesn't matter what your opponent's going to do. If you have a good team, you have a good team, and you just play. Where do you fall on that? How much do you believe in counter teaming? How much of what you bring is influenced by what you think your opponent is going to bring? Where do you fall on that whole topic?
Uh, I used to I used to counter team much more often a few years ago, but I don't believe in that nowadays. I have been I prepared games with heavy counter team for someone that I felt like this will 100% hit. Like there's no chance this team is gonna do wrong, but it would only work on that one specific player, for example. I don't do that anymore. I nowadays like to generalize my team a bit because uh, by playing a lot of tournaments and yearly being a participant in big events, you will come to understand that you know your opponents prepare on you as well. So you also see what you play, and year by year, this is the preparation becomes even better from your opponents as well. So even if you are peak, if you are a peak preparer, your opponents are not far behind. So they will also prepare something for you, and they're probably going to bring something unconventional that beats you or something you want. They know themselves that you are a preparer, a good heavy prepper. So they also take their own measures. So in order to counterbalance this, you need to be generic. You need to be generic, have a strong team that you're going to probably beat, have a neutral matchup versus anything you face, and you see the game how it goes.
So you said a couple years ago you felt differently. You used to counter team a lot.
Yes.
What changed for you between now and then? What made you decide to go the other way?
A couple of years before, I was more irrelevant. That's what changed. When you are irrelevant, you are a smart player. You are a good player, and you get into a tournament for the first time. They know nothing about you, so you can like go all out on the prep thing. You can counter team. You can do because first of all, you don't have the risk. You don't have the risk of losing because you are a nobody. So you you work on your prep, you advance your prep, you see what works. You saw that I shouldn't have to use this team because if I use something more standard, I could win. And now I shot myself, on the foot by bringing something very specific. You start realizing that okay, you learn from your mistakes. So when you get more and more and more relevant, I think it's better for a good player to be generalizing.
But now with all that you've accomplished, when you feel like you have a target on your back, you feel like people are going to play differently against you because you're a known commodity.
Exactly. So you have to generalize. So you also keep them on their foot because you can get counter prep. Like if you know fear is gonna bring me Zapdos because I always play my Suicune. Yeah, they won't bring Suicune. They're gonna bring, I don't know, Tyranitar. So you can get counter team by the knowledge that they know that you are a good prepper.
So walk us through a little bit your mindset and your process. So if you next week had to play a major tournament game, SPL or otherwise, let's say GSC, you're going to play against BKC next week, and it matters. It's for playoffs or something. How would you approach that? How would you ultimately decide what to bring or what not to bring? A lot of people they get stuck with they have 10 different ideas and they can't pick. Well, I like this about this one. I like this about that one, and Friday rolls around and they still don't know what the hell they're doing. How do you narrow it down? How do you decide against somebody who's really good? Like I said, we'll pretend BKC is your opponent. How would you go about preparing to beat a player like that?
Uh, we are in a team tournament setting, or I'm a solo.
Yeah, let's call it SPL just for example.
On the screen, right? Well, you start by collecting the data you have. That's what I will do. I'd ask for and see recent replays of my opponent. Let's say BKC. And I'm gonna check the last 10 replays of BKC. Obviously, the 10 replays are not enough, but you often, that's a small trick. You often get tendencies and likings of the month or of that tournament from the very recent replay. Like you can notice a habit that this guy likes his salamence, for example. from recent replays. So recency actually matters in replays. You can always go back and watch the 50 last replays, but the 50th probably won't even matter in your. Let's be real, because players change as well. So I would I would watch the last replays of my opponent. Even better if they are in the same tournament, and I will try to find something that I would consider my opponent to be weak against. For this example, let's say I notice my opponent doesn't respect 3-attack celery, for example. He doesn't bring his blisses. He's usually with his Swampert or his Skarmory core. So you think, 3-attack celery could work here. And you start searching if this pick you have in mind could actually work by going through more of his replays and his builds or how he responds. Try to find a specific replay that includes that Pokemon from him facing it and see how he responds to it. And if you think he's responding poorly to it, he's actually misplaying around it or trying to scout it or not respect it enough, I probably think at that point that yes, that's what I want to bring, and then you start building upon that Pokemon. If you build alone, for example, I would build my own team. But let's say you are in SPL, maybe you don't build. Maybe you announce your team. Hey guys, I want to use 3-attack Celebi versus BKC. Your team will respond and ask you how come and what did you notice. You're gonna tell them what you saw and your thoughts, and you're gonna help you build the team, and that's actually how it goes. Then you're gonna test that team, and if you feel satisfied, for example, I said I prefer to build generic stuff. If I feel like this team is great, but it might lose to Salamence, I'm very open to it. Salamence comes on Dactrio, and then Swiss me. Then I'd probably scrap it, build a new. And if I'm not satisfied during this process by the end of the deadline that we scheduled, I'm probably going to use something generic. But if at one point I feel, yes, this is the team, I'm beating everyone on tests, I'm beating everyone on ladder, yeah, this is the team, you usually feel that. You actually know this is the team. Yes, that's actually how it goes, at least for me.
You mentioned ladder. Do you still ladder
Yes,
ADV?
it's a process of trial and error. Yes, I do. I actually do. Not often, but there are periods that I feel like I want to ADV a little bit, and play a few games, get hooked, play for like a month, fix my teams, get in shape, and then let it drop.
So in ADV context, because I know GSC is a whole different ball game, but you played in a lot of the CALLOUS Invitationals, and like you said, you're on ladder. You played it a little bit in SPL. I want to talk about opponents. Who comes to your mind as someone that you really enjoyed playing against, and why? And then, of course, on the flip side of that, is there anybody that comes to mind that you did not like to play against, and why?
In ADV context.
ADV.
Uh, yes. Well, on ladder the faces you meet are common. You don't get to play the same people on tournaments. That's something I wanna address before.
Of course.
Well, some of my favorite, I really like playing against M Dragon, for example, in ATV.
Why is that?
He's very creative. He's very creative. He's predicting a lot. Usually, his test teams are wacky, so you might see something that you like, and you can compliment or help him perfectize that team. Or M Dragon is a really chatty and nice guy to be around. I also like McMegan. I don't usually play against him, but when I prepare with him, I really like his style and his mindset in ADV.
I'll let you cheat for just a minute off topic. What about GSC? Is there an opponent that you used to really enjoy playing against or not enjoy playing against?
Not really. I'd play everyone on GSCA. I really love GSC. I don't form rivalries. I used to rival Lavos back on our prime days. I really looked forward playing with him. But I also like other players, like Earthworm or Conflict. Amazing player. I really like playing those guys.
Taking the behavioral stuff out of it, we're not here to talk about that, but do you think that Lavos was one of the best GSC players of all time?
He's definitely top five in whatever order you wanna put him. Some people really like him and his plays and his teams, and would even say he's the best. Some would put him fourth or fifth. I don't know. Lavos had a great pick, but he didn't last long, did he?
We are going to get to that a little bit later when we talk about ADV, but you touched on it a little bit now. You value longevity, right, when you're talking about the all-time discussion?
Yes, obviously.
So being around as long as you have, because you were talking earlier about Smogon used to be smaller and scheduling and tournaments used to be different. What are some of the other ways that you would say that the culture and the environment of competitive ADV or just the competitive scene in general has changed? Do you think that Smogon has gotten friendlier or less friendly over time? Do you think that it is easier or harder now to try to do well in a tournament? Tell us about, from your perspective, how Smogon and how the competitive scene has changed over the last 20 years.
Well, it definitely got more accessible. That's something I can tell for sure. You can find much more people trying out even old gens like ADV and GSC. Nowadays, even if they are like 20-year-old meta games or more. And but in regards to winning something, I think it's really hard. If you want me to be sincere, especially ADV that hosts so many big tournaments, it's really hard to win something in ADV because people really like ADV. It's probably, if it's not the best old gen, probably the second best, and it has a huge. That's very subjective. So I understand that everyone has their own opinions on tiering, but on gen tier, but uh, especially in ADV that has like a massive player base, I think it's hard to win something because there are a lot of really good people playing ADV, and very 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 a low amount of tournament for you to win. So if there are like 5 big tournaments in ADV and you have like 20,000 people playing, yeah, it's really hard to win.
Would you still recommend, if we've got a 16-year-old kid listening to this right now, would you recommend getting into old gens as a new player? Is it too hard? I mean, GSC and ADV are both over 20 years old at this point. Would you tell a younger player trying to get into the scene to try those gens, or are they just better off? You know what, kid, just go play Gen 9. Don't even get into this old stuff anymore. What would you say?
I will recommend them to start ADV and GSC and RBY. Those three versions are not as hard to get into. They are easy enough to get good at, hard to master, but you can get good very fast because there is a lot of information nowadays that you can use to your own advantage. Like you can enter Smokon, and you literally find everything. There is a Pokédex, there is a team building section, there is a, I don't know, rules of half sample teams. There's everything you need right in front of you. You just need to search it, find it, learn how you play, build your own, or try your own. And even if you are not satisfied by that, you can enter Discord. You can ask around. You can. It's very accessible. So even if they are old generations, they are quite fun. You don't find this level of well-built generations nowadays. Gen 9 and the developers keep piling up stuff and piling up Pokemon. So you don't have to learn 900 Pokemon to enter and see which 50 of them are usable, and then have to learn the generation gimmick or the 100 items or the abilities and the small interaction. It's much more difficult to learn in a current generation that is to learn an old generation.
Now, can I take from that that you personally do not have much interest in trying to learn a current generation? It doesn't appeal to you?
No, I know the current generation. I like it, but I understand the difficulty. It's more difficult.
So going back, cultural changes. I mean, let's take a hot topic. Let's talk about cheating, for example, in tournaments, ghosting in tournaments. Do you feel like there is more or less cheating now than there was, say, 5 to 10 years ago?
Uh, I'm not sure because something you have not a way to know. You don't know anything. Like I'm not in a position to know how much costing is done today or how much it actually happened years ago. But generally speaking, I think obviously cheating exists even nowadays, but you can't know it. But I think it's less relevant nowadays because there are much more uh, people are much more aware of it. Like this guy might be ghosting, or this guy is notorious for not playing his games by himself, or that this guy's playing weird, or he's taking his time and he's actually disconnecting and trying. There might be, or he's playing much more. He's like playing like God, where he was a noob like 2 weeks ago. You can spot the differences and you can investigate it. Sometimes, even though you see the small things that might make you wonder if a player is cheating, you can't even prove it. So, but generally, even though I think ghosting and cheating is less nowadays, you can't be sure if it's happening or not. That's a faulty on the game we play. That's a fault that you have to accept.
I agree with you on that particular point, and I've talked to other older players who feel the same way, who feel like back in the day it was just kind of an unspoken thing where a lot of people, most people were doing it, friend groups were doing it, whereas now maybe the culture has shifted towards a collective agreement that we all think this is not a cool thing to do, we shouldn't be doing this. So people just don't
It's
because
frowned upon.
it's frowned upon now, right? Um, so what are some areas that you think we as a community, the Smogon community and the old gen community, can still improve on, can still do better on? What are we missing?
Well, the tournament scene in general is missing like monetization or like correct way to self promote themselves in order to have bigger, better, and much more interesting tournaments. You can say that by monetizing, you cut off viability or accessibility to many tournaments. And I'm not suggesting that we should like monetize everything. But like take for example Smokon. You can monetize a spear easily. They could do it if they wanted. But there need to be a lot of stuff need to get fixed in order for that to happen. Like you need sponsors. You need much better tournament directors. You need better rules. You need someone to monitor every activity that it's done correct and smooth. You need like advertisers. You need YouTube channels. You need a lot of things to happen before you reach that stage. But we don't see any small steps taken to this direction. So our tournaments pretty much is even that a lot of years have passed, I noticed that our tournaments are pretty much the same. All you get are a small badge icon, some credit, and that's it. You move to the next one.
But you do believe that Pokemon could be a viable esport?
Absolutely.
Wow.
This game is not because this game is not made for kids.
No, not the
A lot of
not the competitive side of it anyway.
yes. Computer science
So,
absolutely made for people who wanna think.
oh, it's a skill game at the end of the day, without a doubt. It's not a coincidence that you see the same people doing well over and over again.
Yeah, you sharpen your mind a lot with Pokemon.
So along the same lines then, do you think that there are too many side tournaments these days, too many meaningless tournaments, too many tournaments where there isn't really anything to win other than good job, buddy?
I think that even those tournaments, yeah, yes, I think they are. But even those tournaments, they are important because it's a tournament that the new player is gonna try out and eventually get into the bigger scene. You need to have scale into such things. You start with a small tournament, you move to the medium tournament, and then you move to the big tournament. So even though you have a lot of side tournaments or like things you don't get anything, it can still happen. I don't find those unnecessarily bad. They have their uses.
So it's not that you necessarily dislike the lesser tours, it's more that you want the bigger tours to have more stakes, to have money involved, to have more advertising. It's nothing against the smaller tours, you just think the bigger tours can do better.
If 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 uh, if the game eventually wants to keep the best players, that's what needs to happen. Because something that you invest your time into and your I don't know your not only your time but your energy. You sit all day. You're building a team. You're trying out that team. If you want this to happen for many years and keep that player, you need to lure him with something that's worth his time.
So let's talk.
So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I think they are the bigger tournaments need to have better stakes or like money or something that will incentivize good players to stay and stick to the game.
So let's talk about changes because you've been playing a long time and you have seen both GSC and ADV undergo many changes over the years. ADV examples, you played before the rest talk changes, you saw that. We have banned Sandvale, we've changed Baton Pass several times. So touching on a couple of these things one at a time, and then also just the general attitude. I mean, do you agree with how quickly and how readily we seem to change these old gens, or do you think the process should be a little bit more thorough? Do you feel that there's a point where you stop messing with it? Where do you come down, generally speaking, on changes? And then we can get into one at a time, talking about specific changes.
I like the pace that we are keeping nowadays with changes. It's been done one not we are not actually slow taking changes, but I don't think that because we are an old generation, I'm talking now for ADV, it needs to be go for things to go slower for people to adjust to it or like accept it or need time to slowly accept that, speed passing, for example, is bad. If there is a team that handles this stuff, if that team, uh, this team that doesn't, the councils don't work. Like one day we woke up and we decided that we're gonna ban, for example, Metagross. They ask around, they make surveys. There is a lot of discussions in those councils by themselves. They test things out. They announce tests on the ladder. They announce tests on tournaments. Especially it depends how drastic the change is, but the bigger the change, the bigger the impact. So they understand it, and the testing is more thorough. So I trust and I like this process. I don't think we are taking too long, and I don't think we are moving too fast. I think it's being done on the proper pace.
So we'll take a quick GSC detour before we get back to ADV. I know I remember talking to you about it years ago. You felt very strongly about GSC baton pass changes and that needed to be banned. Is there anything still today that you think should be adjusted in GSC?
In GSC, with the tools we have now, I think the tier is pretty much perfect. But if we somehow allow arranging PPs for some moves, for example, let's say you are allowed to set your Fire Blast to 8 or 5 PP, I think we could examine or maybe test a metagame where recovery is nerfed. That's the only thing I might say that it's playable on GSC right now.
Okay, so you're very happy with the state of GSC.
I'm very happy with GSC.
Okay, so let's talk about ADV. I guess the easy one, right? So rest talk changes. That wasn't just because it was too good or it needed to be banned or whatever. That was a mechanical
You had to
change.
do it.
Okay, so
Yes,
you
you
think
had
that
to do
was necessary to make it in line with the cartridge?
it. I think that if you discover a bug, even if even if the metagame is played differently throughout the years, even if you discover a bug much later, like it happened with ADV, you have to accept it, but it's a necessary evil, and implement it. Like it was done correctly. Yes.
So along those same lines, so like RBY body slam, you agree, even though it's been a million years, you got to change it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then what about what about Sandvale in ADV? Do you agree with their decision to ultimately ban Sandvale?
Yes, I agree with that because it's it's very narrow. It's a very narrow path or explanation of what's viable or what's the line we should stop. If I could address it correctly, like what's the line you stop when you are considering banning or not allowing? Let's not say ban, not allowing a certain strategy. Like if we're going to ban, for example, Sunway, why not ban Thunderwave or Paralysis or Rock Slide flinching? Some people's arguments were this back then. What's the line you stop?
Well, that's my
And
question. That's my
a
question for
Sunday,
you.
yeah, that's actually a question that someone from the council should answer. But I feel that Sunvale was a step in the right direction. Sunvale ban was a step in the right direction because it was obviously when a small habit develops, like for example Sunvale develops throughout the years and it gets more common and people are starting to abuse it much more than the one random game you found in the ladder that had Sunday. The people start bringing in tournaments. People start bringing in money tournaments. People start playing it all over on the ladder. You realize that, guys, you have a problem here. Everyone's playing Sunday. You have to address that.
So along the same lines, then, would you ban bright powder?
Yes, it's on the exact same line with Sunday. It's just a step over the things that I think that they shouldn't be allowed.
Would you ban quick claw
In ADV,
in ADV?
yes.
You would. Would you ban scope lens?
No,
Okay, so it's case by case basis for you.
it's good. Yes. I don't like how's the word?
Do you think
I don't
that?
like
Go
I
ahead.
don't like common rules to be applied to every generation. Like for example, baton pass. You could say that baton pass as a move is inherently flawed, so we ban it from everywhere. That would be the easiest solution. But I like that we are doing a case by case on every gen. Like for example, ADV allows baton pass, a very restricted form of baton pass, but it's allowed.
Yeah, so we'll break down baton pass piece by piece. So going way back with like the most broken element, do you agree that ingrained Smeargle should be banned?
By itself
Well, I guess
or with baton.
it's a complex ban. The rule today is Smeargle can't have ingrain. Is that do you agree with that?
No,
Okay,
the
what would
rule
you
should,
change?
or my, yeah, the rule should have been Smeargle is not allowed to have ingrain and baton pass.
That might even be the rule. I'd have to look. I thought it just couldn't have ingrain, but you might actually be right about what that is. I'd have to look. But you agree that ingrained Smeargle shouldn't be part of a baton pass chain, which is the point.
Exactly. Yes.
Do you agree with the ban of soundproof?
No,
Okay,
I
so
don't.
so you think
I view it as I understand it. I view it as a necessary evil. But you ban soundproof, it's like you ban Mr. Mime. Who else gets soundproof? I don't remember in ADV.
it is what the hell's his name? Explode.
That's its only ability. I don't remember if Explode got its other ability then, but I think it's its only ability. Eh, Right?
I would have to. Yeah, I could pull that up real quick while we continue the conversation. But go ahead. Let
Yeah.
me
If
let me pull that up real quick.
you we banned two Pokemon because you couldn't phase out baton pass receivers or baton pass some parts of on the baton pass chain. For example, on the Mr. Mime case.
So
But
I've got the answers right here. So regardless of baton pass, not part of it, you just flat out you can Smeargle cannot have ingrain. Period is the rule. And then soundproof is okay. So Electrode gets it, but it also gets static, so that's okay. But Whismur, Loudred, Explode, and Mr. Mime only get soundproof, and therefore those Pokemon are banned.
yes, that's what I dislike. I dislike that you ban a Pokemon because you want to address a very specific thing about that Pokemon. For example, it's the soundproof, but you it's like you have an apple and a part of that apple is rotten. You could cut that part and eat the rest of the apple. It's still usable. But like right now, you see a Pokemon with soundproof and you toss that whole Pokemon on the dustbin because some teams used, for example, Mr. Mime, and you couldn't roar while Mr. Mime was on the field. That's what I don't like. You could make the rule much more. That's like trying to make the rules as simple as possible. But soundproof is banned. That's it. You're done. The rule is there. You could make the rules a bit more specified. I know it doesn't look good to the eyes, but you get to the rotten part. You take what's actually abusable and what's not good for and healthy for the metagame, and you will toss that thing out, not the whole Pokemon. That's what I think that would be for me, at least. I'm not talking like for everyone, obviously, but for me that would be a much more careful tiering.
So generally speaking, then, you are not opposed to what they call complex bans. You're very open to them.
I'm very open here.
I wish more people felt that way, my friend. So here's
When
the
when you mentioned GSC a bit back and pattern pass in GSC. In GSC, what we did is we banned the combination of min look and baton pass.
right.
You can't min look and then but you can't trap pass. Okay, and but the we could have like be even more specified with that and like narrow it down to specific Pokemon. You can't min look and baton pass, for example, on Smeargle. And we could let Umbreon live a bit longer and test it out. But the way tiering is done on Smokon, we had to pick. You either ban with this way or you don't ban at all. So sometimes you have to go against your own thoughts and your own beliefs, just so you toss the whole apple and you don't, even though you can save a bit of it. Even when you could complex ban and make the tier much more, you could make the rule much more sharp and specific into what you want to ban. You generalize it and you get done with it. Yeah, I understand your sentiments
Oh no, no,
completely.
I'm just a neutral interviewer. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I've
really.
always been a fan of complex bands, but I think you and I are in the minority on that.
Yeah, we are. That's not how tiering is done,
So
whether we like it or not.
so here is the big question. I got to ask you the hard question. We're getting near the later parts of the interview. I always save this doozy for the end. Could you please could you define your personal criteria for the greatest ADVer of all time? What does that mean to you? Because it means different things to different people. And then, of course, the big question, who is the best ADVer of all time?
Uh, I don't know. You are putting a really hard question on me.
Damn right.
Yeah, I played in 2004. I played in 2008. I played in 2016, in 2020, 2024. There are a lot of good players.
Well,
Can I give like 3 names?
you can give as many names as you want. Why don't we start with the criteria, first of all? So, what's important to you? You mentioned longevity. What else?
Longevity, preparing,
Okay.
and in-game skills.
So, those are the three big ones for you.
I
Their
don't.
longevity,
Yes, I
their
don't buy.
prep, and their in game skill. Okay.
I wouldn't buy you like a highly decorated individual with like 40 trophies on his profile, even if I didn't consider him, if I thought that he was a medium player.
Sure.
Okay, so those are the criterias.
And
And if I had to pick, I would say the linear curve, ABR, and Astamatitos.
in your mind, those are the three
Those are
greatest ADVers of all
those
time?
three are those three are the best ADVs of all time.
Is that in order or is that in no order?
No order, no order. I think that linear the linear curve won your tournaments. He was very successful when he played. He had longevity. He was a menace on the ladder. Like you, if you got linear, you would like 50% lose, and that says a lot. Like it's not someone. It's not easily you meet someone and say, I can actually lose this on the ladder. Lanier was one of those guys because he laddered a lot. And he obviously had the team building. He obviously had the skills. Similarly, ABR has a consistency. He's probably one of the greatest players of all time. And ADV, it feels like he's been trend for a while, if I'm honest. He's very successful in ADV. He won a lot of grand tournaments. He's very methodical in his preparation. He's great in game. He's creative. A lot of things to say about him. And obviously, Astamatitos, even though he's not as successful in achievements like the other two, I think he has the highest ceiling. Like Astamatitos' creativity is like through the roof. He was winning with Milton. He was winning with Hulsarin. He was winning with Zangoose. I don't know. Whatever Pokemon he thought he could make work in ADV, he did. That's what I liked about him. He was a menace. Very sharp player, very offensive player, great player.
It's very hard to argue with that list of names. I respect that list very much.
There
So,
are other players. There
oh,
are players that I admire. Like that, I can throw a bone and say there are honorable mentions like McMegan, Mdragon, Majin Tupac, Z. A lot of good players. But yeah, those three are my three favorites.
I'm stuck on some of the
BKC, obviously.
ones. I was gonna say I'm stuck on some of the ones you didn't name. BKC, Ojama. I'm surprised, but
Oh God, I'm sorry.
I was waiting to hear what. I mean, I'm not trying to feed you. The whole point is that you tell us what you think, and I think it's always just as fascinating to hear who you don't list alongside who you do.
Mm-hmm. No, obviously, BKC is one of the greats.
So, as we wrap up this interview, I mean, you and I, we're old, man. You and I are both. We're married. We have families. We're busy. We have things to do other than Pokemon. How much longer do you see yourself sticking around and continuing to play tournaments and put time and effort into this game? What's the future hold for you in Pokemon?
I don't know. My time online, especially in Pokemon, decreases day by day, if I'm honest,
Yeah.
because real life eventually catches up. And like I mentioned before, uh, the tournaments don't incentivize you much to stay and stick around. Like, if we have to pick to play with your kid and see your wife and go out, or stay at home and prepare for the, I don't know, for the 10th year in a row for a tournament that you already won, yeah, you obviously gonna pick real life.
Yeah.
So
Not even a question.
yeah, I can't even give myself a timeline. I would probably be drifted apart and don't even realize that I stopped.
This time in 3 years, are you still an
No
SPL?
matter 3 years,
Yeah,
I
just
don't know. Probably not. Probably not.
so you're near the end of the road then for Pokemon on a serious level anyway. No one really quits, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's more likely that I'll be around, but not just playing the big tournaments. I'll be around. You can chat with me. You can find me in Discord. You can ask me for help or assistance, but I would probably not be playing the big tournaments. Yeah, I may get the inch to play something. Maybe it will be something of a smaller scale, just to satisfy my hunger. But yeah, especially long and like yourself, you quit like how many times now? Two, three, four.
Oh yeah,
You always come back. You always come back. You have that hunch, that little hunger that you need to hit.
yeah, I think I'll probably die before I quit at this point. I can't give it up.
Yeah, that's how it is.
That's pretty much all the questions I had prepared for you. But is there anything else that you'd like our viewers to know before we call it a day?
Uh, uh, yeah, I would like your viewers to subscribe to CALLOUS. Uh, follow, follow you, hit that bell for the notifications, and they will see you in the next one.
What a guy. Thanks for your time, man. It was a great chat. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.